The radio crackles before anyone speaks. Static chews at the edges of the sound, broken by breathing that's too fast and too close to the mic. A voice tries to form words, fails, then tries again. Troops in contact, it manages stin, strain. Another burst of noise follows. Metal scraping stone. A shouted warning, cut in half. Then the transmission collapses into dead air, leaving the command tent filled with a silence that feels heavier than gunfire ever could. On the central screen, a red ring blooms across the map. Slate 12, a narrow canyon marked by jagged lines and old notes no one likes to read out loud. A few officers shift their weight. One looks down at his tablet instead of the screen. Someone near the back mutters almost to himself. But the canyon eats aircraft. No one argues. Her name is offered quietly. Major Elena Ward. The room pauses, waiting for something more that does not come. She flew Slate 12 once. Someone adds, careful and flat. A beat passes. Then another voice, lower, finishes the thought. She's grounded. No one raises their voice. No one defends her. The judgment hangs there, unspoken but complete. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Military and Veteran Stories so you never miss these true tales of courage. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from today. Outside the command tent, Camp Blackwell pretends it's just another day. Heat shimmers over the runway, bending the horizon into a wavering line, and the air smells of fuel, sun-baked rubber and metal that has been working too long without rest. The wind comes in shallow gusts that lift grit from the tarmac and lay it back down like a quiet warning. Major Elena Ward sits where the shade from Hangar 4 falls in a thin, reluctant strip. Her helmet rests beside her boots, scuffed at the edges, the kind of wear that comes from use instead of display. Her hands remain loosely folded, not at attention, not slouched, simply still, like someone who has learned to save energy for the moments that demand it a few yards away. Beyond a painted restricted line, an A-10 sits under a heavy tarp. The tarp is tied down with practiced knots, the kind used by crews who expect wind and time to test their work. That line on the pavement is more than paint. It is policy, paperwork, and the quiet weight of 2 years that never stop being counted. People move around her without looking. Ground crews push carts. Pilots cross the ramp with flight bags slung low. Someone laughs about something small and ordinary near the maintenance shack. Elena watches it all with the same calm she uses for weather charts, her face giving nothing away. The younger pilots are easiest to read. They walk with the confidence of people who have never been told no by a canyon, never watched a plan fall apart because rock and wind do not care about rank. They glance past her like she is part of the hangar itself, something fixed in the background. No one says her name out here unless they have to. When it is said, it comes with a careful tone, as if the word carries a file folder behind it too. Years grounded, they say, then leave the rest unfinished, because the rest was never fully explained to them either. There had been an investigation. It lives in whispers and sideways looks, in the way a conversation softens when she steps close. The official language is always vague, dressed in terms like pending evaluation and operational restriction, but the message underneath is sharp. Stay on the safe side of the line. Stay quiet. Stay away from Slate 12. Outwardly, Elena does exactly that. She follows schedules, signs what she is told to sign, and keeps her voice level when people speak to her like she was once reckless instead of precise. She never demands to be seen. She never argues for a second chance in the middle of the ramp, where everyone can watch, but she never stops preparing. A small notebook rests on her knee, plain cover. No markings. Inside are wind notes from morning briefings she does not need to attend, pressure trends copied from screens she only glances at in passing, and terrain sketches drawn from memory. She writes neatly, not because she expects anyone to read it, but because order matters when everything else can change without warning. Every few minutes, her eyes lift toward the far end of the runway, where heat blurs the world. She isn't watching takeoffs the way spectators watch for excitement. She watches like a pilot. Angle, speed, climb rate, the slight correction that tells you the air is unstable above the concrete. Her gaze shifts to the top-covered A-10, as if the aircraft can hear her thinking. The jet sits silent, patient, heavy with purpose, built for close work and ugly days. Under the tarp are systems that could still come alive with a few switches and a steady hand. Even if the world has decided the person who knows it best should remain grounded, Elena reaches into her pocket and pulls out a folded slip of paper. It is a fuel log from a previous maintenance cycle of enough to be irrelevant on paper but useful to her in a different way. She traces a line with her thumb, doing the math without moving her lips, as if she can feel the numbers rather than calculate them. She is counting fuel. She will not burn it for fantasy, not for drama. She counts because habit keeps her sharp, because discipline is a form of respect, and she refuses to let bureaucracy dull her edges. A gust of wind pushes the top's edge up for a brief second, and Elena's eyes catch a glimpse of gray metal beneath familiar shape, a curve she could recognize in the crowd. Then the moment passes, the top settles again, and the aircraft disappears behind canvas and silence across the ramp. A small group of pilots passes close enough that their voices carry. One talks about a training run smooth sky, easy targets, and how the instructor said he had good instincts. Another laughs and says instincts are overrated when you have technology. Elena does not look up. She does not flinch. She simply turns a page in her notebook and makes a small note about the wind direction changing slightly, like she is collecting facts instead of listening to the world dismiss her. A maintenance cart rattles by, wheels clicking over rough seams in the concrete. The sound is steady and unhurried, the rhythm of work that does not stop for stories. Tools clink, a pneumatic line hisses. Somewhere, an engine coughs to life and settles into a low, constant growl. Elena's posture never changes, but something in her attention sharpens, as if she senses a shift before anyone else does. Not panic, not hope, just readiness, clean and quiet. A maintainer approaches from the direction of the restricted bay, wiping his hands on a rag that has seen too many days. He is not trying to be dramatic. His face carries the neutral look of someone who lives in facts and metal, not in rumors. He slews near, eyes drifting toward the command side of the base as if he can feel the tension moving through the air. Then, he speaks almost conversational, like he is naming a weather system rolling in Slate Dozy. The command tent tightens the moment Slate 12 is said out loud. Not because anyone believes in curses, but because everyone in that room has seen maps become graves when terrain decides the rules. Cold light from the monitors washes faces pale and flat. The air smells faintly of coffee and dust and electricity, of scent of machines working too hard. Colonel Marcus Hale stands with both hands on the edge of the table, shoulders square, eyes fixed on the screen where the red ring pulses over the canyon like a warning flare that never burns out. He does not pace, he does not raise his voice, he does not ask who failed. He asks the only question that matters. Give me clarity, he says, calm enough to make it sharp. Not theories, not excuses. Where are they, and how long do they have? Technical Sergeant Ryan Cole rewinds the transmission again. The static returns, the breathing, the half-formed words. It plays through the speakers with a raw intimacy that makes the tent feel smaller. When the voice cuts out, it leaves behind more than silence. It leaves behind the sound of people trying not to imagine the next minute. Captain Lee Monroe leans forward, fingers moving across a tablet, pulling feeds and imagery that are never complete enough. Her eyes flick between the screen and the map, fast, not frantic. She speaks with no drama, only trained assessment. Indigo 6 is pinned in the lower bend. She says, they're taking fire from above. Multiple wounded confirmed. They've shifted positions twice and lost their last clean egress route. Hale's gaze doesn't move. Options. Monroe doesn't soften it. They're low. Oh, they're rationing. Ammunition. The remedic is working under contact. If they don't get air relief, they're going to get overrun or bleed out. They can't climb out. They can't wait. And Slate 12 is cutting their radio like a knife. Lieutenant Daniel Frost, barely into his 20s but already wearing the exhaustion of someone who lives inside airspace plans, traces routes on the map with his finger. Every corridor he draws looks like both promise and risk. A wrong turn means a helicopter in a canyon with nowhere to run. The ridges are stacked, he says. Any rotary ingress is going to be inside a funnel. Colonel Hale finally looks up, eyes moving over the faces around him. I don't want speculation. I want something we can do. Someone mentions fixed-wing support, and the room reacts the way it always does when the answer is dangerous. Heads turn. People hold their breath without noticing. Captain Monroe hesitates, then says it. There's one pilot who flew Slate 12 before, and came out. Hale's eyes narrow. Name, Major Elena Ward. Monroe replies. The room shifts in subtle ways. A chair creaks. A pen stops clicking. Someone in the back leans against a pole as if the weight of the name pushed him. She's grounded. Someone adds quickly like an automatic C.